What a night in the association. Comebacks, overtime heaters, and an epic upset, plus a puke and a rally. Ugh. Also, who should be more upset? Teams missing out on the overall 1 seed or a team missing out on the entire tournament? And guess what? Baseball is back under the cover of night. Can the Dodgers go undefeated? Where's Bill Plaschke when we need him? You know, he's got the Dodgers on that.
Tracy Morgan, I'm glad you're okay, baby.
Cleanup at the world's most famous arena. All right, let's begin here. While the world was knee-deep in brackets and load management, the baseball season, believe it or not, folks, it began this morning. Dodgers 4, Cubs 1 in Japan. Yamamoto got the win for LA, and the bullpen combined for 4 hitless innings. All this for the defending champs without Mookie Betts and Freddie Freeman. And then, of course, tomorrow, the first look at Roki Sasaki. All right, Kevin Clark, your number one takeaway from game number 1.
I don't say this often, but this was a good idea from Rob Manfred to play these games, to market your Japanese stars, to get some buzz for the Dodgers in the early season of March when everybody's talking about other sports. Unlike last year, my son is sleeping in, so I didn't watch this game live, but I obviously caught up on it this morning. Ohtani is still Ohtani. He had multiple hits and multiple runs. He led the MLB in such games last year. He had 25. He's got 1 already. The Dodgers, I think they're going to go on a destruction tour right now for the next 161 games. They're the biggest favorite to win the World Series since the 2003 Yankees. Unlike that team, I promise you, the Marlins are not lurking this year.
All right, Bill Barnwell, Kevin Clark thinks it's a great time for America's pastime to start during America's bedtime. What do you think about that?
Would rather see games happening during daytime, but I understand it's spreading the sport around, especially with so many great Japanese players on the Dodgers, one of whom we saw yesterday in Yoshinobu Yamamoto. Of course, Ohtani's going to get the headlines, but Yamamoto didn't play a full season last year. The entire Dodgers rotation didn't play a full season last year. No one's pitched more than about 145 innings. Yamamoto gets to 96 in 5 innings, a bunch of whiffs with his splitter. That looked good. And then the bullpen. You bring in Tanner Scott now, the new closer for the Dodgers, has an easy ninth. They didn't allow a hit after the 3rd inning in this game. This team's pitching last year was injured all year. They had to win despite their pitching. If that's their strength this year, that's a very terrifying proposition for other Major League Baseball teams.
Harry Lyles?
Yeah, Frank, I can appreciate the idea and spirit of what Major League Baseball is trying to do by playing this game overseas, and I think it is a good idea, but I think they need to do a better job of at least letting everybody know when it's going on and really push this thing, because I think a lot of people didn't know. As far as the game itself goes, the fact that the Dodgers won this game without Mookie Betts and Freddie Freeman, to me, is a good example of why this Dodgers team is so dominant and why they have a really good chance to actually repeat this year, which we have not seen since the 98 through 2000 Yankees when they did a three-peat, is because that they are going to be able to win multiple ways. You're going to be able to miss a couple of bats like that because of the pitching that Bill had mentioned, and so they are rounded out in that way. But another stat, though, this team has the highest payroll. There have only been 4 champions with that over the last 25 years. Obviously, the 2020 Dodgers were one of those. So I am most interested in seeing if they're actually going to be able to break that sort of curse, for lack of a better word.
All right, Justin, were you up early this morning watching Dodgers-Cubs?
I've got 2 young kids, so I'm up all times of night. And so the other night, I read my son this story. It was called The True Story of the 3 Little Pigs, and it's told from the Big Bad Wolf's perspective. The Dodgers are the Big Bad Wolf. This is a team that spent nearly $500 million in contracts. Speaking of contracts, they have 7 9-figure contracts and 6 MVPs on this roster. So I know this word gets thrown around a lot in sports, but they have a chance to be one of the more exciting quote-unquote villain teams that we've seen in quite some time. I'm talking like 2017, 2018 Golden State Warriors with Steph Curry and Kevin Durant, those teams that just look impossible to beat. So it's going to be really fun watching the Fighting Plaschkes over the next 161 games, really hunt down the league, have the rest of the league try to hunt them down, because they're going to be good in nearly every facet of the game of baseball.
Bill Barnwell, is it just a formality the regular season for the Dodgers? They're going to be a playoff team, right?
They're going to be a playoff team, but I think Mr. Tinsley is correct here. I saw a Dodgers player come out this week and say, well, we can't be the evil empire because everyone wants to play here. Let me let you in. You can be the evil empire even if you think you're the good guys. The evil empire always thinks they're the good guys. The Dodgers are going to be the villains of Major League Baseball by the end of the season just because they're so damn good.
And I thought one of you would say that the Cubs are still undefeated in the United States. So just for that, we're all done. All right, we've been Horn. Let's move on. A ball night going off the rails on Monday. The Rockets rallying from down 25 using a missed free throw tip-in to force overtime and get the win against Philadelphia, has nobody playing. A depleted Pacers team dropped the Wolves in OT thanks to Obi Toppin dropping 4 threes in the extra period. And without Jokic and Murray, the Nuggets beat a full-staff Warriors team riding in on a 7-game winning streak. After the loss, Steve Kerr said Steph is exhausted from carrying the team, and they may need to find him some rest. I don't think he's going to play against Milwaukee tomorrow. All right, so Harry, what was the biggest win or what was the biggest loss last night?
Yeah, obviously, Frank, the game with the biggest stakes was with Golden State, but I'm willing to sort of give them a little bit of a pass. Steph Curry was injured in this game, and that's why he had a season-high 7 turnovers and missed 10 of the 14 threes he took. But I am going to go with the Indiana Pacers. They snapped the longest streak currently in the NBA, the Timberwolves' 8-game win streak, on the back of Obi Toppin because they were down 4 starters, and by the end of this game, they were down their top 6 scorers because Andrew Nembhard was ejected and Ben Mathurin had fouled out as well. So the fact, and plus that corner game winner that he had was one of the best shots that we have seen all season long. So I would like to celebrate what the Pacers were able to do, being as shorthanded as they were against one of the hotter teams in the NBA.
Not the first guy from Brooklyn to hit a big shot. Justin Tinsley, what caught your eye last night?
Well, the biggest win was Houston because you do not want to lose to that Philadelphia 76ers team, who I think is the biggest disappointment in the NBA all season. Yep. But the biggest result, I gotta go with Golden State. We talk a lot about how Denver has owned the Lakers in recent years. Well, they've also owned the Golden State Warriors. Last night was their 9th consecutive win against the Golden State Warriors. And if you're the Warriors, you got to look at that Nuggets team. They're down Jokic and Murray. Like, you have a chance to create a little bit of separation with the Minnesota Timberwolves. Y'all are basically tied for the 6th seed right now. And when I look at that game, Golden State was just not prepared. Aaron Gordon had 38 points last night, but when Draymond Green was guarding him, it was night-night. It was he was shooting 6 of 9 with Draymond as the primary defender. And I know Steph Curry is tired. I know he's hurt. But when I look at the rest of their schedule, they have the 3rd toughest schedule left in the West, which means none of these games are guaranteed for them to win. And they are quite literally fighting for their play-in to play out of the play-in lives right now.
All right, so Kevin Clark, they say this all the time in college basketball. This is March. In the NBA, March means everyone's sitting. So you see all these guys sitting. I'm thinking this is March. What do you make of that?
Yeah, I completely agree. These guys need to play. I'm surprised that Justin and Harry are so comfortable handing out excuses for Steph Curry.
Yes, I agree.
When the Nuggets' best guys didn't even play. So that's an excuse as well. The Nuggets didn't take that excuse. Instead, they won. You mentioned Aaron Gordon scoring 38 points. Russell Westbrook had a really good game. The Nuggets were 16 of 24 off of his passes last night. The Warriors had their 2nd worst transition defense night of the year last year against the Nuggets. It was a special performance from a Nuggets team making a statement going into the playoffs. No excuses, boys.
That's right. And let's remember, you're going back-to-back. You were here yesterday. You're here today. Bill Barnwell, what stuck out for you?
No load management here, baby.
Right.
Frank, I know you're concerned with people taking off in March. Paul George, of course, taking off of his podcast and now taking off of his team as well. But I lean towards the Nuggets here, as other people have mentioned. Not just that they won without Jokic and Murray, but how they won. They didn't have their half-court offense without those guys. So you have to adapt. Okay, you get more than 41% of the offensive rebounds. Okay, you get the 2nd most transition points of any team in a game against the Warriors all season. And yes, the Warriors not only had Steph Curry, who was not his usual self, but they had Jimmy Butler. This team was 14-1 with Jimmy Butler before this game. So this is a huge victory for the Nuggets. I think even more impressive than maybe perspective of it being a loss for the Warriors.
Harry, what about the Lakers? Nobody mentioned them. You know, that lethal combination that we all expected. Luka Doncic and Austin Reeves. They keep winning. While speaking of rest, LeBron is getting healthier.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is an opportunity for them, specifically Luka Doncic, to sort of take control of this team because it is what their future is going to look like, obviously. And with Austin Reeves, too, the development of him, we cannot understate. And I think that we can look back to that moment where he looked very confused with LeBron James a couple of years ago and look at the player that he has become now. And now you can look at this team and there are pieces that are built in place, rather, that are going to allow them that I think that they could still make a run, hoping that LeBron gets healthy.
Justin, get the final word.
Yeah, the load management thing, I think that's being overblown a little bit. I know Jokic sat last night, but that was only the 7th game that he missed all year. These guys aren't sitting because they want to. Everybody in the West is quite literally in the playoff hunt right now, so they're not sitting just because they're tired. They're sitting because I think it's a smart business play right there. It's for the long run.
Just say load management isn't a big thing. Will you stop? That's a wrap on Ball Night. We go to college and buy or sell. Unless, of course, Justin wants to take a break. He's tired.
Oh, really? Here we go.
Gotta know your host, Justin.
Here we go. Frank, I thought we knew each other.
Deion Sanders, Coach Prime for the rest of you, wants the NCAA to allow his Colorado Buffaloes to play another school for their spring game. Deion says it would look like the NFL model, where teams practice together, then probably fight together, for a few days before scrimmaging. And guess what? Syracuse said they'd come to Boulder if allowed. Harry, you're all over this. Buy or sell the idea whether the NCAA should let them do it?
Frank, I'm buying it. I'm also buying the timing of this as everybody else is canceling their spring games. Not only is Deion like, hey, we're going to continue playing ours, would somebody else like to join us? Like, why not? These teams are going to be practicing anyway. If you could get multiple schools to agree to do this, cool. And if they don't want to, they don't have to participate. But the NCAA does not lose anything by letting teams do this, so they should absolutely allow it.
Yeah, I want to disagree with Deion, but I know it's hard to find anything wrong with this. Justin, what about it?
Fun.
Yeah, I'm not sure about the legalities of all this, but other coaches are mainly concerned about other schools poaching their talent. So maybe they do these games after the transfer portal day. But I really like the idea, and it's not just because of the master marketer who's behind this. College football is moving more and more into a pro game, and this is one of the elements that I would really like to see the college game mimic.
Kevin, what's going to happen the first time a practice fight breaks out? Because you know it's going to happen at some point.
It's going to go viral and it's going to help recruiting, Frank Isola. That's what this is all about. To me, everybody's saying, oh, NCAA rules don't allow this. There are no NCAA rules anymore. They don't exist. They have ceased to function. Just do it. Fran Brown, fly to Boulder. Let's get this show on the road. For me, it's a competitive thing, guys, because I think in the portal era, you're breaking in 20, 30 guys. If you're practicing against yourself, you don't know if you're any good. Look at Florida State last year. They thought they were pretty good going into the season. They had no idea. Go against somebody else in the spring. It lets you know who you are. I think it's a great idea. I think it's the start of something big.
Bill, you're nodding in agreement.
I don't mind it, but I don't think it really addresses the problem here, which is that fans are not getting to see spring games anymore because teams are afraid, as Justin mentioned, of losing their players in the portal. I think you could move the portal earlier so that you can't go into the portal after a spring game, but these games, these scrimmages are not going to be played in front of fans most likely. If they are, great, but if not, and I assume they're not, then you're not going to get that opportunity to see your players in the spring that fans have had in the past. So I don't like it from that perspective.
All right, buy or sell two. The disrespect felt around the women's March Madness bracket would make Rodney Dangerfield proud. UCLA, the overall number one, had the other regular one seed smarting.
Obviously, it's disappointing. It really is. I'd like to get some feedback on how they came to that conclusion. Because we put together, we manufactured a schedule that, if done right, it should produce the overall number one seed.
I never thought I'd be a one seed and feel disrespected, but I thought the committee, I thought there would be very little chance we would be the number 4 overall number one.
Oh, you're breaking my heart. I mean, you talk about first world problems. Justin, can you be a one seed and still feel disrespected in the way both USC coaches are?
You can feel however you want. It doesn't mean you're right. Look, I think Juju Watkins is the National Player of the Year, but Southern Cal is the only number one seed that didn't win their conference tournament.
Right.
So to me, I think Dawn Staley and South Carolina have more of a leg to stand on. But guess what? I've got an all USC natty. So continue to dump this whole bag of chips on their shoulders because I want to see both teams ticked off going into the tournament.
Kevin Clark, to have a case?
To quote Isaiah Thomas, they met the criteria to be selected, but they weren't selected. But to me, when you lose games like South Carolina and USC did, you leave it in the committee's hands. South Carolina has had seasons where they don't lose games, so they don't have any argument to be not the number 1 overall seed. So for me, I don't see much of a difference here. This just isn't that big of a deal. By the way, net rating, which Kevin Blackistone cited about 600 times yesterday, would give the edge here to UConn, but they lost games too. I'm okay with this. Thank God that USC and UCLA are in the same state, or else Gavin Newsom would get involved like the West Virginia governor.
You don't get any credit for quoting Kevin Blackistone. Bill Barnwell.
I don't understand how Lindsey Gottlieb could be surprised that USC is the 4th of the first overall seeds when they are currently ranked 4th in the country. That's exactly where you would expect them to be placed. And I understand, listen, they beat UCLA twice. That does matter. But we know that timing matters when it comes to these seedings. If you lose late in the year, it's going to be in the brains and the memories of the selectors. And so I understand losing in your tournament to UCLA is going to end up probably meaning that you're going to be below them. I understand the frustration, but there's no real reason to think that they would not be anything but the 4th spot.
Harry?
If one of these teams has a gripe, it's South Carolina, because they beat a Texas team that has basically been the best in women's college basketball since January, including the best 4-game stretch any team has had in the country during the month of February. But Kevin referenced KB's net rankings, and UConn is number 1 in those. The last 4 number 1 overall seeds have been the number 1 team in the net ranking at the end of the year. That is UConn. So I give South Carolina an edge and say, yeah, they have a gripe. UConn does as well, and UConn beat that South Carolina team by 29 on their home floor a month ago.
Did UCLA. They beat South Carolina as well. All right, buy or sell 3.
This was a miscarriage of justice and robbery at the highest levels.
That's the governor of West Virginia, upset at the Mountaineers getting snubbed for the last spot in the bracket. West Virginia has the edge on UNC in quad win ones, but its second round, first game, Big 12 loss to Colorado. That's a big part of the equation. Kevin Clark, your reaction, is that a proper one for the governor of the state of West Virginia?
So, first of all, I don't have much sympathy for any of these teams. West Virginia was mediocre this calendar year, but that's not the point. I love this guy. I love whatever he's doing. He's having a press conference, National Corrupt Athletic Association. For me, guess what? I want the NCAA in court so that allows, through the back door, Fran Brown to go to Boulder while they're not looking and play a spring game. Let's get the NCAA tied up in the courts while that happens.
Oh, my God. Bill Barnwell.
Kevin building his entire block around his hatred of the NCAA. I just don't buy that there's ever going to be a real thing that works here. Yes, there was a North Carolina AD on the selection committee, and there's probably some view of impropriety there. I don't think anything actually happened, but the only way to make everyone happy is to decide this by computer, and we saw in college football that made nobody happy.
Harry, is this just politics? Is this a guy talking to the voters, I have your back? Do you think he really cares that much?
I mean, no, like your recipe for a response called for a pinch of salt, and you gave us a tablespoon, right? I mean, the fact that he said a miscarriage of justice and robbery at the highest levels, you know, like you can't really say that when your team lost on a Wednesday during conference tournament week. Like that's really the only argument I need to make there.
Justin?
Corruption has existed in the NCAA for generations. No way I'm caping for a 19-13 West Virginia team who just lost to the last place team in the Big 12, Colorado, who went 3-17. This guy needs to stop worrying about being the 68th best team in the tournament and worry about his state being 48th in healthcare. That's what he really needs to focus on.
You should debate him on CNN or something. That was pretty good. Guess what, though? We have a miscarriage of justice and robbery
of justice.
At the highest level.
Really?
Sorry, boys.
Frank, Toronto.
Sorry. Showdown next. Harry and Bill, welcome to Showdown. Rose, BC, your unrivaled 3v3 champion. Chelsea Gray took the MVP, 18 points, 8 assists, one night after scoring 39 in the semis. Rose finished the regular season number 2 behind the Lunar Owls, who only lost one game all season, but lost in the single elimination semis. Harry, is this a satisfactory ending to the season?
I think so. We see single elimination tournaments everywhere. I just think the overall success of this is a big takeaway for me. The WNBA can take away a lot of things from them between player salaries, amenities, childcare, and exposure as well.
Bill?
Yeah, I like the gameplay. I didn't like it ending on a free throw. I know we're going to try some inevitability with that, but I just think ending on a free throw is a boring way to end it.
I kind of agree with you. You guys will split the point. Showdown 2 last night at the Garden. Cover your eyes. In the third quarter, Tracy Morgan literally vomited on the court while the Heat's offense vomited figuratively. Outscored by 26 in the quarter. Tracy posted to Instagram that it was food poisoning, and he also pointed out that the Knicks are 1-0 every time he throws up on the court. Bill, you giving more credit to Tracy Morgan's rally puke or the Knicks defense?
You know, Frank, Tom Thibodeau likes to see people throwing up on the court in the third quarter, but he wants it because of defensive exertion, not because of the MSG chicken fingers.
Harry?
Yeah, I think you got to give them credit because they were forced to wipe up the floor, not just of the vomit, but of all the bad juju. Yes, Tracy Morgan gets credit for this. He said he's going to pull it out during the playoffs, too. Let him do it in Boston.
You know, I think about it. You have Willis walking out onto the court. You have Ollie Frazier at the Garden. Messier listing the Stanley Cup. And now we got Tracy Morgan vomiting. Oh, boy. Harry, take the point. Take the win.
Message to America's educators. I come from a family of many educators, and you are the most important people in this nation because you are raising the next generation of our most brightest and intelligent people. And I said that perfectly. Obviously, I'm a great example. It is incumbent upon you to allow your students to watch March Madness this week. We're used to seeing, at least in my generation, the TV would be wheeled in. It is easier than ever now to show the games, whether it's on a mobile device, iPad, projector. Make it happen. It is incumbent upon you to let your kids watch basketball.
If you're keeping score at home, one guy wants load management, the other guy doesn't want people going to school.
TVs let you know.
Oh.